In this video I'm going to show you how to make a Turbogold MasterNode with a Linux VPS, which is a virtual private server, and a Windows cold wallet. So you're actually going to have two wallets in this setup. The Linux VPS wallet will be running the MasterNode daemon, which is sort of just like the MasterNode backend. And that will be running 24/7 because it's going to be on a machine in the cloud, a server that you're renting by the month. And then the Windows wallet will contain your actual coins, and that is considered a cold wallet because it doesn't need to be connected to the internet all the time. So your MasterNode will be running on the Linux machine, which is always running 24/7. And then the Windows piece is really just running whenever you want it to be running, and you don't have to have it running all the time. You can have it running whenever you want, basically. And when it's not running, you won't be staking your coins, but your MasterNode will be running, and you will be collecting MasterNode rewards on your address. So that's really the best setup, because your coins are on your Windows wallet, which no one really knows where that is, and the Linux machine is running the MasterNode. So if anyone wants to go out and look which MasterNodes are online, they can see the Linux machine. But if they tried to hack into that Linux machine and get to your coins, they can't. They can really just turn off your MasterNode, but they can't touch your coins because your coins will only exist in your Windows wallet or on an address where the private key is in your Windows wallet. So that's really the setup. You have two wallets, a Linux wallet and then a Windows wallet. Okay, first step here is to install the Windows wallet. And down in the comments section, you're going to see a link to get to the wallets. So you just want to go to the website and click this link over here for wallet, and then download the wallet for your operating system. We're going to be doing it Windows. Just click download. And I'm going to do a save as to save this onto my desktop. What you can do is save this wherever you want, but one thing you might want to do is, so this is your actual wallet executable. One thing I probably suggest you do is store this executable with the rest of your programs on your computer. So what you can do is go to File Explorer, and then go to My Computer, or however your computer is set up, and then go to the C drive, and then Program Files. And in here, you can make a new folder, and I would just call it Turbogold, wrong one, and then put that executable in there. And then what you want to do is do a send to desktop, and what that does is it will create a shortcut on your desktop. So the program actually lives here in this folder, but if whenever you want to run it, you just double click it from the desktop, or you can drag this into, say, your programs area or wherever is convenient for you. But first you want to do is run that executable. And the first time it opens up, it's going to do this synchronization where it downloads the blockchain. And you can see here it has a progress bar, and you can hover over this to get an idea of where it's at. And you can see it's got 500 blocks so far of the blockchain. And this is going to slowly increase. One thing what you can do is go into your tools or settings options, and then go to, actually not settings options, help debug menu, and go to information. And here you can see the number of connections you have and the number of blocks that have been downloaded so far. This kind of just gives you an idea of the progress. There's a good progress bar here, but this number here actually tells you the exact number, and I like looking at this better because I can see how many connections I have and then number of blocks so far it's downloaded of the blockchain. As long as this number here under number of blocks is increasing, you are progressing towards finishing downloading the whole blockchain. This might take a little while the first time you set this up, but if you come in here and you look and you see as long as this number is increasing, you don't need to worry. If this gets stuck and doesn't increase for, say, 5 minutes or something, you might want to go onto the Discord channel and ask some people what's going on, or maybe get some, ask people if there's any nodes they can add. Like if this number here for number of connections was 0, that means you have no connections to anyone out on the Turbogold network, and you're going to want to go ask some people in the Discord channel what to do, but that probably won't happen. So we're just going to wait till this downloads the entire blockchain. While we're waiting though, we can go to the next step, which is creating a couple addresses. So we're going to go to File, or actually we're going to go to Receive. And in Receive here, it looks like you have one address right now with no label. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the label, so I'm going to hit Edit, and this is where you can edit the label here. I'm going to call this from Exchange, and this is an address. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go purchase a bunch of coins on an exchange, and then I'm going to withdraw them from the exchange and deposit them here onto this address. I'm going to create one more address in here, and to do that I do New Address, and this is going to be my collateral, or my MasterNode collateral address, and this is where I'm going to put my coins to create my collateral for the MasterNode. I don't want to withdraw directly from the exchange to this address though, because sometimes some of the exchanges may do a funky transaction fee where once it gets to this final address it's not the same amount of coins as you were expecting. So I don't suggest withdrawing from an exchange straight to your MasterNode collateral address. That's why I have these two addresses. So this is the MasterNode collateral address. I'm just going to call it MasterNode 1. And so I have these two addresses. Now that I got a couple addresses, you can create as many of these as you want. So if you're going to be buying from, say, 3 or 4 different exchanges, you could create 3 or 4 different addresses to collect. But I like to just have one, because I'm going to go buy, well, in this instance I'm only going to have one because I'm going to buy from one exchange. But if you're buying from a bunch of exchanges, you might want to create a separate one from each. That way you can kind of make sure that the transactions you submitted are there or not, or make sure they jive with what you're expecting them to be. But in this instance, I'm going to have one for the exchange address and then one for the collateral address. So now I got my two addresses. I'm going to, first thing do is encrypt this wallet. That will put a password on this wallet. So there's two terms, encrypted wallet and a locked wallet, and they're a little bit different. Encrypted just means there's a password on your wallet, and locked means the address is locked from someone being able to use it, and the only way they can unlock it is use that password you use to encrypt it. So encryption is really just adding a password to your wallet, and locking and unlocking is what you kind of do with that password. So what we'll do is do encrypt wallet, and I'm going to give it a very simple passphrase. You don't want to do a very simple passphrase. You want to do something more complex than this, but I'm going to do a very simple one for right now, and I'll just hit OK. It says, warning, if you lose your passphrase, you're going to lose all your coins. That's something to remember, so make sure before you put any coins on this wallet that you actually are able to unlock this wallet, and I'll show you that in the next step. So just a warning, hit yes. It says it's going to restart the wallet, or it's going to close down the wallet. You'll have to restart it, and it's also warning you that any backups you previously created need to be redone. So we closed it. I give it a few seconds to actually do the closing. Sometimes these wallets do some cleanup activities on indexing of the database they have, the internal database. So you just want to give them a few seconds after you close them before you try to open it again. And so now we opened it again, and you can see our icon has changed to a locked, and it's saying the wallet is encrypted and locked. Before you ever try to send any coins to this wallet, you're going to want to make sure you can unlock the wallet, because if you tried to send coins to this and then you figured out later that you couldn't unlock it, you can't get to those coins. So first thing I like to do after I lock a wallet is make sure I can unlock it. And uncheck this for staking. We want it fully unlocked. This is something that is a later step that you could probably check out if you go look at how to do staking on coins. Right now, I want to do a full unlock, so I uncheck that staking only. So I put in my password, hit OK, and you can see this icon change. Now it says it is encrypted, but it's currently unlocked. So that is good. That means I know my password. And I would save that password somewhere that is not in the same place as you save your backups of your wallet. Because if somebody has a backup of your wallet and they have your password, then your wallet really is not encrypted because they have the password to get to it. So make sure if you encrypt it and you make backups, you save the encryption key. Like if you write it on a piece of paper or something, don't store it in the same place you store your backups. So now we have this encrypted wallet. The next thing I like to do is make a backup of the wallet. So you go to File, Backup Wallet, and I'm just going to put this on the desktop, and I'm just going to give it a name of the coin name. And then I like to put a date on here, just so I remember when this was created. And then I always put a wallet.dat, and that makes it lets me know that this is definitely a wallet.dat file, because if you just put a coin and then a date, you don't really know for sure that it's wallet.dat. All of the wallet files, every backup you ever create is going to be a wallet.dat. You're backing up the wallet.dat. So I like to just leave that there at the end. Okay, so on the desktop we're going to save that. And you can see that it saved it. So the next thing I would do with this is I would put this onto a thumb drive and then say throw that thumb drive in my safe, and then put the password I have, if I have it written down or if it's in a password program. Just make sure that password is in a different location than this actual backup. So that's about it for the wallet. The next step is letting this thing finish its synchronization, and we can do a quick double check to see where it's at. We can see by hovering, but I like to come back in here and make sure we still have lots of connections, and we're downloading the blocks. So really we just need to wait a minute, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to fast forward the video while this finishes, because you really don't ever want to send any coins to this wallet until you A, are able to encrypt it and decrypt it, and B, make sure it actually synchronizes with the network. Because if you try to send the coins to this wallet and it can't synchronize with the network, you're never going to be able to see those coins in this wallet, and you're going to think that your coins disappeared or your coins don't exist. So before you really start using this, I always like to let it sync up. So I'm going to just sit back and I'm going to fast forward the video while it syncs up. Alright, so it looks like the wallet has finished synchronizing. And we can hover over this check mark over here. It says up to date. And that's good news. That means we can move on to the next step. And that next step is to go out and purchase some coins from an exchange. In my case, I'm going to go buy them from an exchange, but you may be buying them from a friend or someone else like that. So what I'll do is I'm going to go out to the exchange. I'm going to right click this from exchange address. So go to receive tab, from exchange, copy the address. I'm going to go onto the exchange and withdraw from the exchange and paste that address. So the coins will come from the exchange to this address. And if I was doing that on, say, like 4 or 5 different exchanges, I would give all of them this address, or if I had different addresses. That way I would collect them all onto this single address, and then when I'm ready to create my MasterNode collateral, I will send them from this from exchange address into my MasterNode collateral address. And really I do that just so I can collect a bunch of coins and get them all ready to send in one single transaction to the MasterNode, because you need to send your coins to your MasterNode collateral address in one single transaction and for an exact amount of coins. And the easiest way to do that is collect them all here. So this is a wallet that, or an address that I control. So I'll collect them all here, and then when I'm ready I will send them here. So this first step is go get them out on the exchange, send them to this from exchange address, and I'll be back in a second. Alright, so now I have purchased some coins, and if I go to the transactions tab, you can see here that I have sent myself from an exchange, or to my from exchange address, 801 coins. And the reason I purchased 801 coins is because I need to do an extra transaction here in a few minutes, and to pay that transaction fee I will lose a tiny bit of a coin. If I had sent myself exactly 800 coins, then when I make that transaction I will only be able to transfer 799.99998 coins or something like that. So when you go and buy them on exchange, don't buy exactly 800 or whatever the collateral is for the coin you're doing. you want to buy one extra coin, usually, or a half of an extra coin. You know, if it's a super expensive coin, maybe a quarter of a coin. But in this case, it's real simple just to buy one extra coin. So I purchased 801 coins, and now what I'm going to do is called creating my collateral transaction. And what that is we are going to send a certain number of coins, the collateral, to a collateral address in a single transaction. And that transaction is sort of like your receipt. So when you're running your MasterNode, you link that receipt to your MasterNode, and that lets the network know that you do have 800 coins in a single address, and that address will be locked. So those coins are locked from anyone spending them, and that allows you to run that MasterNode. So you want to do a transfer of these coins, so you're going to do a send, and you're going to pay to your collateral address. So that if I go back to my Receive tab, I can right-click my collateral address, say Copy Address, and go back to my Send, and paste that there. And I know I put the correct address because it auto-filled that label. It's my MasterNode. And I'm going to send myself exactly 800 coins. So I'll hit yes. And this is where it's warning me saying, I'm going to send 800 coins, and I'm going to charge you this small transaction fee. And that's why you needed that extra coin. So this looks good. I'm going to hit yes. Now if we go back to our Transactions tab, we can see now there is an extra transaction that showed up saying I'm paying to myself. It's because I'm sending between two addresses within this wallet. And the amount, it doesn't show you the amount of the transaction because this amount is really showing you the amount of coins that entered or left your wallet. Since I moved these coins between addresses in the same wallet, this amount doesn't show the 800 coins. But if I double click this, you can bring this up, and that's where you can see this is actually a transfer of 800 coins. And what we need to do now is wait for this transaction to get 16 confirmations. It's saying right here that it's confirming 1 of 10 recommended. The 10 is recommended for you to trust that transaction worked. So if somebody said, hey, I sent you some coins, this is recommending you wait for 10 confirmations before you actually trust that those coins arrived in your wallet. But for a MasterNode collateral transaction, you're going to need 16 confirmations. So right now, if we hovered over it, we have 1. We're going to wait till we have 16 before we can actually start that MasterNode. But while we're waiting, we can move on to a next step. We're going to install a program called Putty. Putty is the program we're going to use to communicate with our VPS and set it up. So what you'll want to do is go to this website, putty.org, and we're going to download the application. Click this download Putty here. And then I'm running a Windows 64-bit, so I'm going to choose that. And I'm just going to hit the run. And then I'm going to step through this installation. Just everything is default is what we want. Don't need to use README. And just hit finish. So now we have Putty installed. And before we connect to our VPS, we're going to want to create an RSA key. And the RSA key will be used to communicate with our VPS server in a secure way. So basically what you're going to do is you're going to create a public and private key pair for your computer to connect to your VPS. And you're going to set it up so the only person that can connect to that VPS is somebody with the private key. So that way you can protect your VPS from anyone connecting to it. And the only person that can connect to it is you, because you should be the only person with that private key. So to create this RSA key, we just go to the Putty installation folder, and we want to choose this program that Putty installed called PuttyGen. And this is how you generate RSA keys. So the first step is to click Generate, and then you move your mouse around until this status bar here is filled up. You're creating just random movements of your mouse. That way the key that's created is unique to your situation. Alright, so now we have this RSA key. This is the public key we will use, and we need to save this public key and our private key into a location. So I'm going to save them here on the desktop. But before I save them, I'm going to do an extra level of security, and I'm going to put a passphrase onto my private key. That way if anyone gets access to my private key, they still can't get onto my VPS unless they know my password. So I'm going to create a very simple password, but you don't want to create a simple one. You want to create a complex one, and you're going to also want to remember that, because that will be the only way you can connect to your VPS. The one good thing about this setup is the VPS doesn't actually contain any coins in this setup. The VPS is just running the MasterNode. So if you lose access to this private key or this password on your private key, it's not the end of the world. You'll have to recreate your MasterNode on the VPS, but you won't lose your coins. Your coins are only going to be located in your local Windows wallet. So now I got a passphrase here. I'm going to save off this public key. Just save it onto the desktop. And I'm just going to give it a super simple name. What you'll want to do is create a real name with the coin name in it, and my suggestion is you create one of these RSA keys for every coin in every VPS instance. So say if you had 3 masternodes of the same coin, you're going to want to label each of these keys differently and create a separate key for each masternode instance. And that way if somebody does get access to one of your keys or somehow hacks into it, not all of your masternodes are at risk. So I suggest you create a separate one for each coin and masternode. So I'm just going to create it pub key, or call it pub key, but you can call it something with the coin name and maybe a date, whichever you want. So now we have the public key. Now we're going to save the private key. Just do the same thing onto the desktop. I'm just going to call it private key. So now we have the public and the private key, and this is saved off so we can get access to it later. You'll want to store these in a permanent location also, not here on the desktop, so save them somewhere where you remember where they're at, because you will need them when we set up Putty later, or you'll at least need the private key. So I'm going to leave this Putty gen window open, because we will use this in a minute when we connect to our VPS. You don't have to use it, but I like to use it because I have this key already set up. This is a key I'm going to enter when we get to that VPS setup step. So right now, I'm just going to move on to the next step, and we're going to leave this here. Now we can move on to the step of installing our VPS, which is the virtual private server. And what we're going to use as a service is called Vultr. This is where I rent my VPS machines, is Vultr. So down in the comment section you're going to see this link, which is a referral link. So you can either use my full referral link where I get a little bit of something whenever you make payments, or you can just use the base if you don't want to go for a referral, or if your friend has a referral, you can use theirs. Since I already have an account set up, I'm not going to use that link. I'm going to go to sort of my dashboard on Vultr. The first time you set up Vultr, you're going to come to sort of a screen like this, and the first step is to go to the billing tab, and that's where you're going to configure a credit card or deposit some bitcoins or something like that. And what that does is you have to prepay for all of these VPS machines. So you put in sort of a balance amount. So I think the minimum is $10. So you're going to deposit $10 into your Vultr account, and then as you set up these servers, it will withdraw from that balance, because you pay by the hour on all these servers. But we're going to set up a $5 a month server, so if you just want to throw $10 in there, that's perfectly fine. That'll give you 2 months worth of the server, and that way you can use it, and if you don't like it, you can use a different service. Any other VPS service providers will work, and it'll have basically the same instructions that we're going to go through now. But once you've set up that billing and you're ready to go, you go to the servers tab, and then we're going to enter the SSH keys, and this is that RSA key that we created earlier. We're going to add it, and then when we create our server, we're going to use this SSH key. We're going to link it to that server. That way only we can connect to it. So you want to hit add SSH key, and we're going to give it a name. And what I like to do is do the coin name and then the MasterNode number in case I'm running 3 or 4 of these things. And this SSH RSA key here is the value from here. I hit the wrong button. And then you just highlight and copy this entire thing, including the SSH RSA. And you paste it in here and hit add key. And if you did it correctly, you'll see it says SSH key added. And then now what you can do is you're ready to start up your VPS server. So you come over here to this plus sign and say deploy new server. And you choose your continent. And then you choose a location that's closest to you. I'm just going to go with the New York. And then under server type, we're going to do an Ubuntu 16.04 x64. And then for the server size, this is really based on memory and CPU. We're going to go with the $5 a month, which is a 1 CPU and 1 gigabyte of memory. You could try the CPU with, or the 1 CPU with 512 megabytes of memory. It probably will work. I haven't tried it, but I bet it'll work. I know for sure it works with this $5 a month one. So if this is the first time you're doing this, I suggest go with the $5 a month one. And that way, once you're sort of comfortable with it, you can start trying these smaller sized ones. So we're going to go with that 1 gigabyte of memory. There's a couple features that you could add to this. The only one that I could really imagine that you'd want would be this auto backups. That way, if this VPS goes down, you can, if it crashes for some reason, you can always reload it from a backup, and it's only $1 a month. There's also this DDoS protection, which if you have a coin where somebody's attacking your MasterNode to try to block you from getting MasterNode rewards, you might want to enable this. But for a coin that, you know, maybe doesn't make too much money, $10 a month is quite a bit of money. So this is really something you really only enable if you need to. You could go with the auto backups. I don't do it just because I know how to make these very quickly. But if you want, I would go for an auto backup. That way, if something happens, you can just restore from backup. If you learn down the road that you can do these really quickly and you don't really want to pay that extra $1 a month, you can remove that in the future. And so the next piece is the SSH key. So we're going to choose the key to associate with this server. So that way, only the person that has the private key that we set up with this SSH RSA key can connect to this server. So make sure when you choose this that you do have your private key of that SSH key that you set up earlier. So select that, and then we're going to give it another name, and I just like to keep all these names the same. So the name of coin underscore and then the MasterNode number. And then make sure you're doing one server. The $5 a month we know is the right option. And hit deploy now. And you can see now it added this server into my server list. And the status here says installing. What we're going to do now is we're just going to wait a few minutes until this status moves to a green status. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it says that you can connect to it. So I'm just going to wait around for a minute and fast forward the video through this installing process. Alright, so now the status has changed to running. And what we can do is if you sort of hover your mouse in this little white space here, you can click and it'll give you some more information about the server. And it looks like this server is up and running, so now we can connect to it with Putty. To do that, you go back to the Putty menu, and this time you're going to choose the real program, the full version, Putty. And on this screen, what you want to do is you're going to want to put the IP address here. So on your Vultr window, it's this. You just click this button to copy it to your clipboard and paste it in there. And then the next thing you want to do is go into this connection section and expand this SSH, and then click the auth button. And this will give you the ability to associate this connection with the private key, and that's what you need to connect to your server. So in this box, you're going to hit browse, and then you're going to browse to your private key. I saved it on the desktop, and that is set up in there. Come back up to this session window, and we have the IP address and the SSH key associated, and we're going to give this session a name in case in the future we ever want to open this up again. And I'm going to give it the same name as I called the server or everything else. So you give it the name and then you hit save. And that way in the future, if I want to connect to this VPS again, when I open up Putty, I can just highlight that session and hit load, and it'll load that configuration. You don't really have to do that, but I like to do it in case I need to do it again in the future. So once you have it highlighted, you hit open, and you're going to get a warning about the server's key. I know this server is this Vultr machine. If somebody else, said, "Hey, connect to my server," you might want to read this and figure out if you want to say yes or no. But right now, I'm just going to hit yes because I know this is a secure site. So I'm going to hit yes, and it's asking you, what do you want to log in as? And you hit root. We're going to log in as root. And now it's asking for the passphrase for the RSA key. It's not asking for this password. It's asking for the passphrase for your key, which was this passphrase we configured earlier. So I need to enter this password or this passphrase into here, because really what you're doing is you're unlocking the private key when you're associating it. So we will put that passphrase in there. And if you did it right, you will come to a command prompt. And this means the system is ready for you to enter commands. So I'm going to move this out of the way. And whenever you are entering commands and it pops this prompt up again, that means the system has finished whatever it was doing earlier and it's ready for the next command. So that's really what you need to wait for when you're entering all these commands. So the commands you need to enter are listed down in the comments also. So you're going to go through each one of these one at a time. And the way I like to do it is I highlight it and copy. And then to paste in this Putty window, you just right click once. You don't choose any options, and you don't hit Control C or Control V, or you don't use any of those control commands. You just right click the mouse once and it automatically pastes it. And then you hit the enter key and that will run the command. Then it's back to the command prompt. So we'll go to the next command. I'm going to use my keyboard shortcut to copy it, and then just right click and enter. And then when you see these prompts that says, do you really want to continue? It's just asking, do you want to use up that space? And we'll just hit yes. Alright, and then the next command, which is a big long one, and it's one single line command. It may show up in the comments section as multiple lines, but from sudo all the way to the nano is one single line. And then it's another one of those yes/no questions. You just hit yes. And it's ready for the next command. And the next one. And then it says you want to really do this, hit enter. Then a few more. Just keep on moving through the commands. And just hit yes whenever it asks if you want to do that. Alright, so that was a bunch of prerequisite software that we just installed. Now we're going to be setting up a swap file so we can build the wallet. So same thing, you just run through each of these. They're only separated so I remember sort of the difference between the chunks, but exact same instructions, one line at a time. Copy, right click once to paste, and hit enter. And then now here is where we're going to start building the wallet. So this command gets the wallet from the GitHub site. And then we move into that directory, and then this is the actual building of the wallet. So this might take some time. So I'm going to run this, and I'm just going to sit back and I'm going to fast forward the video so it doesn't seem so long to you, but this could actually take a little bit of time. If you want, you can look at the clock down here and you can get an idea of how long this process takes. If you look at it right now and then you look at it later, you can see how long that took. Alright, so that has finished building. Everything looks good. So now we just move on to the next command. And then we're going to run, so we finished through those commands. Now what we're going to do is we're going to create and edit a config file. And so we're going to run this command, this nano, and then the config file name. And what you want to put in here is you're going to want to put the contents, which it says here config file contents on the VPS. So you're going to want to highlight and copy this entire thing. And then remember in here you just right click once and it pastes everything. And then from here on you don't want to use your mouse, you just want to use your arrow keys on your keyboard. And you're going to want to fill in these sections that have square brackets. So this says RPC user is a random letters and numbers. So this is you should put a legitimate password here. I'm just going to put something super simple. But you want to put a legitimate username and password here, but you don't have to remember what this is. You don't need to write it down anywhere. It just needs to be a real sort of username password, you know, different letters, numbers, uppercase, lowercase sort of thing. And they can't be the same. But I'm just going to make them super simple for right now. But you don't want to do that. You want to put a real username and password there. And then we need to get a MasterNode private key, which we don't have yet. The MasterNode private key we are going to get back in the Windows wallet. So if we go back to the Windows wallet, in here you're going to type a command in the debug console. So if you go to help, debug window, and then go to this console tab, and in here you're going to type MasterNode gen key. And this gives you your a MasterNode private key value, which you can put into here. And remember, you want to right click to paste it. So first I'm going to delete this, and then right click one single time, and that pastes it. And then we need the VPS IP address, and that is on the Vultr site. If you go back to Vultr and you see your IP address here, you just click it, that button to copy it, and then come back down here and then get rid of that, and then right click to paste. And so it's your IP address, a colon, and then 15802, and that's the port number, and you want it to look just like this. So this looks good. And to save this, we're going to hit Control O, which says write out. So on the keyboard, you hit Control O, and it says what name do you want to give it. Just hit Enter. Don't change the name. That's the name we want. And then to exit, so it says wrote 10 lines. That means it saved it. So to exit, you hit Control X, and then we're back to the screen. And so the next step is to run the wallet. And there is another command down here to run the wallet on the VPS. Right click that, paste it in, and it says the server is starting. So that's good. It looks like this wallet on the VPS is running. So what we can do is we're just going to minimize this window. You don't want to close this window yet. We'll get to that in a later step, but right now we're just going to minimize this window. and we have the wallet running on the VPS. So the next step is to configure the Windows wallet to connect to that VPS wallet. And to do that, we're going to need one more piece of information from this debug window. So before I close this, we're going to get our last piece of information, and we're going to type MasterNode outputs. And this gives you your transaction ID or transaction hash of your collateral deposit. And this is that receipt I was talking about earlier. This is basically the transaction ID of that collateral transaction. And then there's another piece of info out here, this 0 or 1 value. So this is a transaction outputs value, and that's either going to be a 0 or a 1. So what I can do is I can move this out of the way, because I will need some of this information. And what I'm going to do, just so I have that access or handy, is I'm going to copy that. So I'm going to highlight all of this. Actually, I'm going to highlight all the way up to the command. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to run Notepad again, and I'm going to paste this into another Notepad document, so I have easy access to it without having this window open. So I'm going to close the debug window now, and now I have this Notepad document that I can get to if I need to. And so back here in the wallet, we need to set up the MasterNode, and what we want to do is go to this MasterNodes tab, and then hit this Create button. And here is where we put a bunch of other information. And the first thing you want to put under alias is the alias you're going to give this MasterNode, and that's really just a friendly name for the MasterNode. No one else is going to see this alias. It's just a name you're going to give it. So here on this screen, it's going to list all your MasterNodes you have configured, and this is really just a name for it. So it's the name that you gave it, but no one knows that name. You can put whatever you want in there. Address. So this is going to be the IP address and port of your VPS server. So you want to go back to your Vultr window, and you can copy the IP address, and then you're going to paste it in there. And then we need the port number. So we open our Notepad document like in the comments. So this is all this information back in the comments. I sort of give you an explanation of what all these values are, and then you want this port number here. So you put the IP address in there, and then the port number. So IP colon and the port number, which is 15802, and then you want to enter your MasterNode private key. That's the value you got from MasterNode gen key. So copy that. And then your transaction hash, and that was this transaction ID value that we talked about earlier. So you want to copy this, but you don't want those double quotes. You just want the value between the double quotes. Paste it there, and then actually that was the wrong column. It's in this transaction hash is where you paste it. And then we have output index, and this is that 0 or 1 value that we got from running this command. So in our case it's a 1, so I'm just going to put a 1. And then you don't need to enter these other two pieces of information. I've never actually used them, but I think what they do is if you want to use this later, you can try, but you can put in a reward address, which is whenever you get MasterNode rewards, it will send the rewards to that address, and you can put a % there. So say if you're like trying to save a certain % for something, or if you want to give somebody 10% of all your rewards, you could put their address and then a percentage. I've never used that, so I'm not sure how that's used, but it is optional at this point, so I leave those blank. So we have all of our information here. Hit OK. Now what we want to do is we want to restart this wallet. That way it'll read this configuration that we just put in here. So we just put that configuration in there. We could probably just hit update, but I like to restart the wallet to make sure it's booted up correctly. But before we do that, go back to your transactions tab and hover over that collateral transaction. Make sure you have 16 confirmations. In our case we have 36, so we're perfectly good to go. We're just going to do a file exit, give it a minute to close down, open the wallet back up, and once it's back up, you go to the MasterNodes tab, hit this update button, and then you see it has loaded up that masternode that we had configured a minute ago. It says not in the masternode list, so that's perfectly fine. What we need to do is start that masternode. So you highlight that row, you hit the start button, and we get this error, could not allocate then. You're going to see this quite often, and what that means is, in this instance, what that means is I have my wallet locked. I forgot to unlock it. So hit OK. I need to unlock my wallet, so I need to go unlock. And I want to unlock it fully, not just for staking. Hit OK. Now we can try that again. And this time it says successful. So we are good. Our wallet, it did relock. Whenever you start this wallet, it always relocks it. Or whenever you start the masternode, it relocks it. So what you'll want to do now is, once we have our masternode, it says, well, it says not in that list, but that's because it needs to be updated. So after it starts running, you want to hit update, and then it shows you it is running. But before we get any further, I always like to go and unlock the wallet for staking only this time. And what that does is it allows you to stake your rewards. So when you start getting rewards, they will be staking as long as you have this unlocked for staking. So you hit OK there. Now when you hover over this, you can see it's encrypted and currently unlocked for staking only. And for staking only means somebody, if they wanted to come over here and try to send our coins somewhere, they wouldn't be able to come here and, you know, try to send our coins without being able to unlock the wallet. So that's what the unlocking for staking only means, is it's unlocked so it can stake, but it's not unlocked enough that somebody can send your coins somewhere. So if I tried to send my coins right now, it would pop up an error saying the wallet's locked. And that's the difference between locking it fully and locking it, or unlocking it fully and unlocking it for staking only. You really want to leave it always unlocked for staking only if you want to be staking. And so you hover on over that, make sure it's good, and we're good to go. This masternode shows as it's running. So one thing we can do to do a good verification that our masternode is visible out on the network is check on the block explorer that our masternode is visible there. And what you want to do is open up your browser, and then down here in the comments section I do have a link to a good block explorer. If this block explorer doesn't work, you can go out on their Turbogold's website, or you can check in the Discord channel what the latest block explorer is. But this one works right now. In here, you're going to click this Masternodes tab, and this will bring up a list of every masternode that is out on the network. And what you want to do is take a look for our address in here. So you see these addresses here, that's your collateral address. So what you can do is come back into your wallet and go back to that receive tab, and we can see our collateral address is this one. And then we just take a look there, and it looks like what we can do is probably just do a copy and then go back into the block explorer, and then we can search for that on this page. Let's see if we can find it. And you see it does show up, and it shows that it's been running for 0 minutes and it's enabled. And this is great. This is definitely our masternode. You can see, since it shows it's 0 minutes, it means it just came online, and that's our collateral address. So this is great news that the network can see our masternode, and if it can see your masternode, you're pretty much done. It comes down here, it says enabled. That means everything is set up and your masternode will start collecting rewards. The first reward you get from your masternode could take a long time. I've seen it take 12 hours sometimes, and some coins I've even seen take days if there's a lot of nodes out on the network. So this very first masternode, I would give it at least 12 hours. And what I like to do is I set this up, and then I just go to bed that night and check it the next day. You know, if it hasn't gotten any rewards by, say, lunchtime the next day, then I'll ping someone on the Discord channel and say, hey, you know, I don't got any rewards, can someone take a look or come and help me or something like that. You don't want them getting on your machine. You're gonna just work it out with them by talking to them. I don't suggest letting anyone on your machine. I've seen too many people getting their coins stolen, so they use some sort of like team viewer program or something like that. I would suggest not letting anybody use TeamViewer, unless you know who that person is, or in very rare circumstances. But I would highly suggest you don't let anyone use TeamViewer to view your system to help you set these things up. But this MasterNode looks good to go, and you are all set up. So now that you've confirmed that your MasterNode is visible out on the network, you can probably just go to bed, check it the next day, and make sure things are good. But you still have this Putty window open. I like to leave this Putty window running, and I don't close it out or anything like that until I've gotten my first MasterNode reward. Because if there was any problems and I haven't gotten a reward after 24 hours or something, I have it already set up and connected, and I can do a quick look through here to see if there's any errors, or I can run some commands to check the status. So I leave this running until I've gotten that first reward. And once you've gotten that first reward, you don't want to put any commands in here to exit out of here. You just want to hit the X up here in the top corner, and that closes that session. It does not close that server down or shut that server down. It just closes that connection to the server. So that's it, and we're good to go.